Hey everyone, Furyion here with the official Furyon's Merchant Guide. Now this guide will teach you how to get from rags to riches and beyond. So, let's get started. The basics of merching, the foundation of everything. This is the first thing any aspiring merchant should learn. So, we'll go over the general rules of thumb for merching, supply and demand, price negotiation, sales versus profit, the auction house, and alternative ways of making gold. Some of the general rules of thumb for merching. Buy everything you want to sell for cheap. Pretty obvious, isn't it? And then you sell those items for more. Now what do you buy and sell? Basically anything, as long as you think you can sell it. And keep in mind, your prices don't have to be high, because cheaper things will sell faster, which means you're making more gold more quick, and you would have more to invest. Now you generally should stick towards items that will sell fast, because you don't want to be stuck with anything for a while, especially if it's a time where you don't have that much gold or you're just starting out. And this goes with everything, even life. You should try to be nice to everyone you run into. Now, we all know that you can't always do that, and I don't either, but do the best you can, because you don't want to burn any bridges. Someone might have something you want later, or they might be offering something for something you have, and they'd be mad at you and they wouldn't take your deal. Alright, supply and demand. Supply, demand, and price, they all relate to each other. When supply increases, price and demand falls. When demand increases, price increases and supply falls. And when price increases, demand falls and supply rises. Supply rises because, higher price, people won't buy as much. Now, all these are part of price and supply and demand and all that, but the most important factor is demand, by far, from what I noticed at least. Now here's a little chart I wrote of what XP prices are on lug. Now, as you see, when there's less of them, they sell for more. And this chart's pretty accurate if you're on my world. I just, wrote it up in like 2 minutes, but it serves its purpose. Now, another important part of merching is being able to negotiate prices. Because you gotta get your things cheap and you gotta sell them for more. So you should be good at talking prices in your favor. If you're selling something, you want to say all the good things about it. And if you're buying something, you want to say how bad the item is. I mean, you still want it, but you should point out some of the flaws. And when you're asking for a price drop or a price raise, you should really note how much percent that you're taking off or gaining. Because, like my example here, dropping 10 grand to 5 grand is half, but dropping 250 to 245 is only a tiny bit, so they'd be more likely to take that. And you generally shouldn't refuse accepting items, but make sure that if you're selling something that you get more worth in items than you're asking for in gold, because it'll take time to sell those things. You shouldn't have to do the extra work. And then when you're buying stuff, you can try and push those items off on them and make them take extra work. And they don't even realize it half the time. Now, another common misconception is sales versus profit. People mess this up all the time. I don't know why, but I'll go over it. When you sell something, you get gold. But the question is, how much gold do you make? Now, you could sell a spectral ammu for $1 million. That's good. But how much did you pay? That doesn't say that anywhere. You could have paid 600 grand and made 400 grand. You could have paid 1.5 million and lost 500 grand. Don't leave that part out. And I got the formula there. It's really simple. Alright, so with the basics of the auction house, people could sell their items there, and a lot of people generally do. Every character starts out with 5 slots. Good knowledge. Fees are charged when you use it. When item sells, you lose 5% of the gold you make. Now it's rounded down because if you sell something for 1 gold, you still get 1 gold. You wouldn't get 0, which is a nice thing. You need deposits to list the item. Now it's based on the starting bid, not the buyout. Important difference there. And it's 1% for 12 hours, 1% for 12, 2% for 24, and 4% for 48. Now deposits are returned when item sells or expires, but not when it's cancelled. The auction house is good for selling items with less demand, or stuff you don't have time to sell, because it lets you sell stuff when you're offline even. Now, people are generally impulse buyers, so you should always set a buyout on items to increase the demand. People don't like waiting 12 hours to buy something. They want it here and now. If you're ever trying to sell a set of something, like a green hunter set or something, you should sell it outside the house, because if you list it in the house, people just buy out the parts, and then you'll have a broken sale and be worthless. And generally speaking, due to the 5% tax, you should sell bigger items outside the auction house. Myself, I don't do that because I have so many items to sell and so many expensive items to sell, so I don't have time for that, and I just list them anyway. But for when you have less money, or, a lower down merchant, you should really consider that. And you should always keep options open for getting gold, because merching, it can be slow at times, and it can't handle everything. So, farming, killing small enemies like the Ruma Pirates in Fingal's Cave, bossing, killing bosses for golden loot, like the Meteoric bosses, or Defectors, or Valgrin, or stuff like that. Fishing, you can just run around and pick up all the golden waters and make a lot of money from that. And if you don't see any of those, you might as well catch the smaller fish, because you may catch a ring or something, and fishing power rings go for a lot. Cooking, if you're high enough level, you can cook fruitcakes and barra-brits and sell them for money, but most other things don't sell. But it's worth noting because it can make some decent cash. Questing, general storyline quests give decent money. And bounties, because you can get mount tokens. And of course, dicing. You've probably all seen a dicer once in a while. They make some decent money, but there's risk involved because you can lose your money too.